For about 200,000 years, we live on this planet. And over those years, we've grown, we evolved. We built communities and culture, created technology that can change all life as we know it. Yet despite that, we still haven't solved all of our problems. And one of them is racism. Discrimination has been a problem since communities have existed. If you weren't a part of my community, then you were my enemy. Of course, not all communities were like this, but it was very common. And for many years, as communities grew from groups of people to villages to kingdoms to countries, we are still discriminating against those who are not like us, even those who are part of our community, all because of their race and culture. There's a reason why we chose to talk about this serious problem. Racism has been a problem way before any of us were born, older than our grandparents, older than our ancestors. Yet despite that, racism is still a problem to this day. And although we came a long way to stop racial inequality, we are still a long way from stopping it. In the last few decades, we had movements, protests to end racial inequality. And to this day, we are still protesting. This is something we can no longer ignore, like the people in the past did. This shouldn't be a problem we keep pushing onto the next generation like it's a chore. This is something that needs to stop because it affects lives, families, communities.
There are a lot of movements that fought back against the oppressors. Some examples are the Montgomery, Alabama bus boycott, which was the first movement that fought against segregation, where African Americans boycotted buses to fight against segregated seats, even though it only lasted between December 5th, 1955 through December 20th, 1955. It is still a memorial and a big step they took for us and the future generation. Now all we can do is try to continue with the fight in land rights during the 1970s and 80s. Native Americans, indigenous people, went to court to get back the land that was colonized, and cases were won. Not all land of the Native Americans has been returned or reclaimed, but they have hope that one day all that was taken shall be returned. Black Panthers, a group that came together as self-defense against police brutality in the wake of Malcolm X's assassination. October 1966 was the year Black Panthers was founded. They monitored police activity in black neighborhoods. By 1968, they had about 2,000 members across the country. They had many controversies, but had a good run. They were officially disbanded in 1982. That's only 3 out of many other movements.
What makes immigrant families less worthy than Caucasian American families? Simply because they come to America for a better future for their children? Immigrants more often than any other reason come to America because they seek a better and brighter future for their children. Police often go as far as to call immigrants illegal aliens, and that is truly offensive because it implies that immigrants do not have a place on this earth. In my opinion, I don't believe it is fair that people are afraid of the police. The police's purpose is to protect us, but they often use their power to manipulate people. They attack people in an unjustified way, and people are not putting up with it now. This is why the protest began, to protect the people and fight for what's right. Still, some people are getting hurt during the protests due to police brutality. These protests exist for many reasons, such as people being murdered for no good reason, hoping for equality within races, as well as hope for justice for the people.
Social media can often lead to cyberbullying. A lot of people are victims of cyberbullying. This at least happens to everyone in their lifetime, but there is a specific group of people who have been racially cyberbullied. One of these individuals is named Jamarion Henderson, who is 14 and in middle school. He tells us a story of how people say racial slurs around him at school, but these racial slurs do not just end in person. They continue on social media through his direct messages. He continues to tell us the ways he gets bullied online. A post on Instagram that Henderson belongs in a cotton field. It also continues to attack his skin color and calls him the N-word. He says that after it was posted, it got worse because people continued to tell him things in his face. Henderson says that at the moment he would have laughed along with them and allowed them to think that it was okay, but he really hated being called these words, and he hated the way they bullied him. He said he had a very passionate hate for it. The hate directed to Henderson and other black students really affected them, Henderson stated. After touching on Henderson's story, social media can also be a very good outlet to spread awareness and influence people to contribute in these things. On June 2nd, many people went to their Instagram and posted black squares to represent the Black Lives Movement matter. On the same day, 13 million people signed a petition to arrest the cops that killed George Floyd. This is a great example of how people of different race and color come together and stand up against racism and the cops themselves. But the thing was that it did not last. Shallow result, although people were standing up for the Black Lives Matter movement, it did not last long. Black Lives Matter profile pictures began to be taken down, as well as the black squares on profiles. There were only a few people who continued to post about this movement.
One of my personal experiences I have is when I was little in elementary school, and my friend at the time was hanging out with another group of friends, when all of a sudden she said I couldn't hang out with her anymore. I asked her why, and she said because I wasn't Mexican like all of them. I then told her, yes I am, and she continued arguing with me, saying I was white and not Mexican because of my pale skin color. I then told her, just because I look white doesn't mean I am, and even if I was, I'm still your friend. The thing was, all the kids knew Spanish and she didn't know any, and she pretended like she did just to get into the group and then kicked me out for not looking Mexican enough. She was being a hypocrite, and I remember to this day how I cried on the playground by myself because she left me and wouldn't let me hang out with her. But the same day I realized how rude of a friend she was, and I hung out with my other friends and never talked to her again. Even though I never let her get to me, I stayed positive afterwards. I just wish people would stop being so mean and learn to be a good person.
I am the daughter of an immigrant. Growing up, I have always feared the police because I was fearful of my father being taken from me. Personally, my parents mean so much to me. I don't know what I would do without them. Yes, there have been times when people make snide comments about my race, but that honestly doesn't hurt me as much as the thought of losing my father. My father has gone through so much that I wish to protect him any way I can. There has been times where people discriminate against him simply because of his Spanish accent, and I don't believe anyone should be treated that way. What makes people believe they are superior to others? People need to realize that we are all human. Furthermore, in my opinion, Trump had a lot to do with racism these past few years due to the fact that he has encouraged it. For this reason, I say something I loathe with all my heart. When I think about all the families that has experienced this fear and more, my heart goes out to them. Therefore, I believe in the protests to hopefully end ICE and free the people and restore families. Personally, I have attended a protest at an ICE detention in Adelanto. It was overall a beautiful experience. When I got there were helicopters and taggings on the buildings and lots of people. This moved me because it was a protest I hoped would change things for the people inside. The treatment of immigrants is simply inhumane from my perspective.
In this project, we made a survey asking people of their opinions about racial inequality. We asked specific questions and discovered how that correlates with their surroundings. Here are the results. For the first question, we asked if the Black Lives Matter movement was important to them on a deeper level. 10.8% of the people neither read nor disagree. 35.1% of people agreed, and 43.2% of people strongly agreed. Next, we asked if they experienced racial inequality in their life. 21.6% of the people disagreed, 24.3% of the people strongly agreed, and 40.5% of people agreed. The third question asked if their family or friends have ever experienced resource discrimination. 40.5% of people agreed, and 51.4% of people strongly agreed. The fourth asked if they agreed that people around them have different points regarding immigration. 16.2% of disagreed, 35.1% strongly agreed, and 45.9% agreed. After we asked if they believe of the treatment of people in some ICE detentions are inhuman, 83.8% of the people strongly agreed. The sixth question I asked of the people and their circle are supportive of their Black Lives Matter movement. 10.8% of the people disagreed. 37.8% of people agreed, and 51.4% of people strongly agreed. Next, we asked the opinion on law enforcement. The statement was law enforcement should resort to deadly forces when detaining individuals only if their lives are in immediate danger. 16.7% of people disagreed. 19.4% of people strongly agreed. Another 19.4% of people strongly agreed, and 44.4% of people agreed. The next question asked if they are comfortable sharing their beliefs with people around them. 13.5% as a grade, 40.5% agreed, and 45.9% strongly agreed. Question number 8 stated the walkouts, peaceful protest, activism, and voting or effective ways to create social reform. And 37.8% of people agreed, and 56.8% of people strongly agreed. After we 13.5% as a grade, 40.5% agreed, and 45.9% strongly agreed. Question number 8 stated the walkouts, peaceful protest, activism, and voting or effective ways to create social reform. And 37.8% of people agreed, and 56.8% of people strongly agreed. After we asked when communicating with others, is it acceptable to persuade others to align themselves with your point of view? 11.1% of people disagreed, and 86.1% of people agreed. Number 10 states of the result his discrimination can influence a person's mental health. 35.1% of people agreed. 62.2% of people strongly agreed. The next one said it will always have the influence on social class and wealth. 48.5% agreed. 45.9% strongly agreed. The next question I asked was what's their gender was. 64.9% was female, and the remainder were non-binary or gender fluid. We then asked their religion, and the top 3 answers were 43.2% having no religion, 32.4% being questioned, and 18.9% being Catholic. Next, we asked what city they currently live in, and the answers are a wide range, with Hesperia being the most. Question 15. We asked what was the highest level of school that they have completed. 14.3% of people stated that they have a high school diploma. 28% of people set up for your college career, and 37.1%, if you wanted to start it, they have some high school finished but no diploma. Next was their age. 19.4% were 16, 16.7% were 13, and the remainder was a wide range of ages. Question 17 asked what high schools they are enrolled and if they are currently in one. And last we asked if they were enrolled in college courses, within the answer being 43.2% was yes and 56.8% was no.
The anti-ICE protests are put in place in order to put an end to ICE detentions that hold immigrants inhumanely. The Black Lives Matter movement is a movement to equalize the rights of the Black community and show awareness of what is going on in the community itself. The No More Stolen Sisters is a movement to bring light to the Indigenous women who are missing or have been murdered. Can we also focus on how social media emphasizes riots due to the hatred of some, rather than the beautiful and peaceful protests that outnumber the protests that turn the wrong way?
No justice. No justice. No justice.
Keep on marching till I die.